So you want to know what the heck is going on with the Minnesota Twins this year, huh? The offseason has been, well, let's just say it's been quiet.
Yeah, you could definitely say that. Not a lot of big splashes or flashy signings. Silent rebuild is what some people are calling it.
Exactly, a silent rebuild. And we're going to figure out exactly what that means and what it means for the Twins' chances this season. We've got a great piece from Steve Adams over at MLB Trade Rumors that really dives into all the details.
It's a really insightful look at the financial situation in Minnesota and how that's driving the team's decisions.
Absolutely. Before we jump in, a huge thank you to Steve Adams and MLB Trade Rumors for their great reporting. All right, so let's set the stage here. The Twins are coming off a year with a record-breaking $154 million payroll.
Which, if you remember, didn't exactly translate into a fairy tale ending.
Yeah, no kidding. But it sounds like ownership took notice of that big spending number.
Oh, yeah. The Pollard family, they basically said, okay, we need to cut $30 million from that.
Whoa, $30 million.
Yeah.
That's a huge chunk of change.
It is. And it really makes you wonder, are they tightening the purse strings in preparation for a potential sale of the team?
Because they did announce they were exploring that, right?
Yeah.
Selling the team.
They did. So all of this is happening under this cloud of uncertainty. New ownership could mean a totally different approach down the line.
Okay, so ownership wants to cut costs. That much we know. But how does that actually play out in terms of the roster?
Well, there's been some pretty significant turnover. We've seen some familiar names move on: Santana, Kepler, Farmer, Margot. But the shocker...
Kirilloff.
Yeah, Alex Kirilloff retiring at 26.
I mean, I was really excited to see what he could do. He had so much potential.
I know. Such a bummer. Persistent injuries just took their toll. It's a tough loss for the team, no doubt.
And it just adds to the challenge, right? Losing a young player like that while also trying to cut payroll?
Right. It forces them to get creative. They had to look internally for some solutions, bring up some younger guys, and focus on those low-risk, high-reward type signings.
And speaking of signings, who are the new faces in Minnesota? Steve Adams' article mentions Harrison Bader, Danny Columba, and Ty France.
Yep, those are the main additions, and the total cost for all three.
Let me guess, not a whole lot.
Just a hair over $10 million.
Wow. Okay, so definitely not breaking the bank.
Nope. They're definitely being very strategic with their spending. But, you know, sometimes those under-the-radar moves can pay off big time.
Ty France is an interesting case. His 2024 season in Seattle, not so great. But then he explodes in spring training.
Right. Hitting over .440, that's got to give the Twins some hope.
Especially with Royce Lewis starting the year on the injured list. It sounds like France has a real shot to win that starting first base job.
It's his for the taking.
Yeah.
And you gotta love those low-risk, high-reward signings. If he keeps hitting like he did in spring training, he could be a huge steal.
All right, let's talk about Harrison Bader. How does he fit into this puzzle?
Well, he does a few things for them. He's a solid defensive outfielder, which gives them some insurance for Buxton, who, you know, we all hope stays healthy, but...
Buxton's health is always a question mark, unfortunately.
It is. So having Bader there is a smart move. Plus, he hits lefties pretty well.
And the Twins do have a couple of younger outfielders, Larnack and Wallner, who haven't had much success against lefties, so Bader could platoon with them, right?
Exactly. He provides some nice flexibility. And then there's Danny Columba, back for round 2 in Minnesota.
Yeah, he pitched for them a few years ago. Looks like he had a great year in Baltimore last season.
He did. Sub-3 ERA, good strikeout numbers, pretty solid all around.
But there were some injury concerns in the past.
There were, which is something to keep an eye on. But if he can stay healthy, he should be a valuable piece in the bullpen.
Now, even with all this talk of budget cuts and bargain signings, it sounds like the Twins weren't completely opposed to making a big move. There was that whole Dylan Cease thing with the Padres.
Yeah, that was intriguing. It sounds like they were talking about a package that included Christian Vasquez and some prospects.
Cease would have been a huge get, a legit ace for their rotation.
No doubt. But the deal obviously fell through. Still, it shows they're at least willing to explore those big trades if the right opportunity comes along.
So it's not just strictly a fire sale, right? They still want to be competitive.
Right. They're not waving the white flag. But they're also being realistic about their financial situation. And remember, this all comes after that pretty brutal collapse at the end of last season.
Oh, man, don't remind me. They were basically a lock for the playoffs in September, then everything just fell apart.
Injuries really derailed them.
Yeah.
It just shows you how fragile a season can be.
So as we look ahead to 2025, what's the biggest key for the Twins to actually have a successful season?
Well, health is always a huge factor,
Yeah.
especially for a team that relies on guys like Buxton and Correa.
And Lewis, hopefully he can bounce back from his injury.
Absolutely. They also need some of their young guys to step up. Brooks Lee, Edward Julian, those are names to watch.
And let's not forget about that bullpen duo of Duran and Jax. They could be dominant.
They could be lights out, so they've got pieces for sure.
So bottom line, what are we thinking about the Twins this year? Are they contenders? Pretenders? Somewhere in between?
I'd say somewhere in between. The AL Central is pretty wide open, so they could definitely make some noise, but it really comes down to staying healthy and getting those key contributions from their younger players.
Makes sense. It's going to be an interesting year, that's for sure.
Absolutely. It's going to be fascinating to see how they navigate this whole situation.
All right, so for everyone listening, here's the takeaway. The Twins are in a bit of a transition period. They're trying to balance financial responsibility with remaining competitive.
And a lot hinges on the health of their core players and the development of their young talent.
So much to watch.
That's baseball, isn't it? Unpredictable and always full of surprises.
And that's what makes it so great. All right, folks, thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the Minnesota Twins. Once again, a huge thank you to Steve Adams and MLB Trade Rumors for the great article.
And a special shout out to our friends at the Planet of Baseball podcast. If you want even more baseball insights, be sure to check out their blog at Planet of Baseball.
Until next time, keep those gloves oiled and those bats swinging.
And keep those eyes on the Twins. You never know what might happen.